My name is Mike Kappas. It's October 14th, 2017. We're at the first Logan Center Blues Festival, and I'm here interviewing Terri Odabi. So, we begin. I know that you were in a military family, right?
Mm-hmm.
Moving around. So,
Mm-hmm.
if you can tell where you were born and where you were going in this family, where you moved around to in your childhood.
Well, I was born in Albany, Georgia, and my dad, I think maybe, I guess my earliest memories are Sacramento, California, which is where my dad was stationed. So we moved from Albany to Sacramento soon after that, and by the time I was 5 years old, my dad got stationed in Turkey. So I remember us taking was it Pan Am airline? And going overseas, and we lived in Turkey for 2 years. And we would sometimes go to Germany, but we lived in Turkey for 2 years. And then soon after that, my father went to West Oakland. His sisters lived in West Oakland, May, Faye, and Terri, and who I was named after. And Terri is the oldest sister, and she said, come home, come to us, because they had all came from Texas. My aunt worked in the shipyards. That she was part of that migration. And my great uncle was a Pullman porter, and so they all. He was in West Oakland. He asked my aunt Terri to come out there. She came. She got a job on the shipyard. Sent for my aunts. Sent for my grandmother. And when my father got out of the military, he joined them. So I actually ended up living in Oakland because my aunt Terri, we lived with her maybe a year in her house. And then my dad got stationed in Hamilton Air Force Base in Nevada. And then he bought a house in Oakland, and that's where I've been since I was 10 years old.
All right.
Yeah.
So, I had a thing here, but I guess it came out of a bio, but, well, first of all, I guess backing up, as you moved around, I don't know how far back your musical memory goes, but do you remember the first time you heard music and it interested you or attracted you?
Well, first of all, my family, we sang all the time. It was just what we did when we got together as family. My aunt was the matriarch, and she, whenever, the holidays came around, Christmas and Thanksgiving, my aunts would come with their kids, and my father and my mom and my sisters, and we had second cousins from Richmond, and we'd all get together, and that's what we did. We just sang all the time.
You say your aunt was the matriarch, but you mentioned your mother was. Your aunt above your mother kind of was gathering the clan
well,
or
my
something?
aunt, she was the one who really, even, I'm glad you said it, because my grandmother was there, but my aunt was the one who really took care of everybody. And she had the home, and she was the one who made sure you knew your cousins that lived in Texas and Arkansas, and she brought everyone together. So with the music, with singing, all of us singing together, she kind of said, "Oh, Tim, you should play bass." And so she got Tim bass lessons, and my other cousins took flute, and oh, you're a good dancer. So she got my other cousin ballet lessons, and I was the one who got voice lessons.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Was there ever thought of playing an instrument, or did you ever play an instrument?
Regretfully, no. But I was in high school. I was a part of a young musicians program, and I just wanted to sing. But part of that young musicians program, you were able to have private piano and whatever instrument you wanted to play. But I had long nails. I like my nails. And
Career as a pianist, foiled by your
foiled
nails.
by my long nails. And actually, the piano teacher was Glenn Pearson, and Glenn Pearson, he directed the Harlem Boys Choir. He's played for, he's a heavy jazz guy, and to this day we look at each other. He's like,
Because you didn't follow up on the
I
piano?
didn't do the piano.
Oh, boy.
He said, your hands need to be flat. Like I said, my nails are long. I know you cut your nails. I'm not cutting my nails. So.
Wow. A career stymied at an early age.
Yeah,
One of your careers.
Well,
The other option. So when did you think that you wanted to become a singer, really make that a focus of your life?
I've always wanted to be a singer.
Always.
I don't remember not.
Really? Wow.
I think with my family, always singing all the time. My mom, especially when we were overseas, that was a way for her to keep us all together. Just have us lined up against the
that's great.
wall, and we would sing for hours. And the only one in my family who really couldn't sing was my dad, and he'd come in like a foghorn and sing, "Oh," and everybody go, "Oh, Dad,"
Why don't you get us something to drink? Huh?
Yeah. But my mom has a beautiful voice, and my sisters and my brother, we all sing. And I think I was the only one that just kind of just had the guts to really keep doing it. Or I wouldn't say necessarily guts, but maybe the drive. I don't think it's something they really aspire to do.
Yeah.
But
And
it's
nobody
something
needs to, but it's a great thing to
Yeah.
do. Nobody needs to take on that rough career of travel and insecurity and everything that comes with focusing on a music career.
Yeah.
So where in the family did you come in as far as number of siblings and where you fell into line as far
I'm the middle child.
of how many?
Well, actually, my mom says, "Why do you say you're the middle?" I said, "Because my brother's the only boy, and I have a sister who's the oldest, and I have another sister who's the youngest."
Oh, okay.
So, and she gets mad. I said, "I'm the insignificant child." She says, "You're not. You're the knee baby," and I don't know where that comes from, but
1, 2, 3? Are you third out of 4?
yeah, I'm the third one. Fourth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you're lucky. I'm 4th out of 5. So
Oh, are
did
you?
even better.
Yeah.
So, did you get any training when you were younger for vocal training? Did you go through that? Yeah. When did you start that?
When I was about 10, my aunt, like I said, my aunt Terri,
Mm-hmm.
she didn't have any children, and she was, she did well for herself, and that was her way of, just giving to the family. If we felt like we wanted to do something musically, she always supported us. And so actually when I was 10, she went out and bought a piano for her house and hired this gentleman named John Patton. He was actually the Shug Avery's father in The Color Purple.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And he had an amazing tenor voice, and because of the times where he was coming up as a vocalist, he never really got the opportunity to perform the way that he should have, because he was classically trained. He was a beautiful tenor. And so I was 10 years old, and he started me off learning the arias.
Good start.
Yeah, and then he fused in the spirituals.
Mm-hmm.
I had to learn the spirituals, and then he also taught me jazz standards. So I had quite a repertoire of jazz standards as a young teenager.
So, mentioning spirituals, did you sing in the church at all?
I didn't grow up singing in church. I did start singing gospel and spirituals even more in high school. I went to high school in Oakland, Fremont High School, and where we had a music teacher, I had a lot of classmates who were heavily in church, and they were all, well, so many of them were talented musicians, self-taught, didn't read music, but could play like no one's business. And so we ended up having like a gospel choir in high school and touring the churches and things like that. So that was my first exposure.
So you were doing that?
I was doing that.
Oh, that's
yeah,
good.
yeah.
But that was not church exactly?
No, I wasn't raised in church.
Oh, okay.
No. It was kind of hard being in the military.
Yeah.
You know, my mom was definitely raised in church, but I didn't have that same upbringing.
So back just for a second on the military and moving around. I guess it's all happened. The moving around happened when you were very young.
I was very young.
But was there anything? Did you pick up anything culture-wise or music-wise in the different places before you landed in Oakland?
I wouldn't say music-wise. I learned I learned quite a few of curse words in Turkish.
How handy are those?
They were good. Especially when I moved to Oakland, you know. I still was using a lot of those words. They didn't know what I was saying.
You get out of the system and they don't have to hear it, huh?
Exactly. I didn't get in trouble.
So did your family have records? Did they play records at home and everything?
Oh, yeah. My dad was a huge Etta James fan. He loved Etta James. He liked Ella Fitzgerald. He played a lot of music for me, I guess, because he knew out of all his children, I really loved music. And so that was something that my dad and I shared. And then my mom, Sundays during house cleaning, we had Mahalia Jackson blazing.
All right.
So that was something that was our Sundays, you know. Yeah, my mom was, we had to do our chores. If we didn't get them done on Saturday, that's what we were doing on Sunday. Yeah.
Well, that's good background music, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
So I suppose then the Etta James records and everything, they traveled with you as you family traveled around and everything.
But then also, I remember, I always tell this story sometimes when I sing. I remember the first time I really heard the blues. And, you know, before, you know, music was music and, you know, tap my foot. You know, if it wasn't R&B, then I wasn't really connected to it. But my mother and father used to have bidwis parties. And
what parties?
Bidwis,
where
they played cards. They had my aunts and my uncles or some friends would come, and they would bring their children, and they would play, you know, play cards and play music. And sometimes there would be some spontaneous dancing that would happen, and I didn't really like hanging with kids, you know, my age, so I kind of would drift up and would be a little nosy and listen. And I remember one time I was just I wasn't in the room with the other kids, but I heard someone go, "Yeah!" And I was like, what's going on in there?
Was that music or dancing that
they
brought
were,
out the
They
big
were
yeah?
dancing, and it was blues playing, and I was like, okay, you know, yeah, something clicked in there, yeah.
All right. Do you remember the first time you saw a professional performer live?
A professional performer live. My first concert, I went to go see Michael Jackson.
Oh, what a start!
Yeah, with and Janet Jackson and Randy Jackson and Kool and the Gang.
On the same bill?
Yeah, they were at the Circle Star Theater. Kool and the Gang opened up for them. And Janet Jackson, she was really little, you know, and she'd dress up as Mae West. And she would, how'd you like to see me sometime?
Wow,
and it was really cute. They had this whole little skit going on. That was my first concert.
What year would that have been?
Oh, wow. That had to be the early 70s.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
So, do you think, I mean, you moved to Oakland, that's where most of your life has been. Do you think being in Oakland had a big effect on your music and the type of music you went for and everything? And your exposure to music?
Well, Oakland was, by the time I remember I met one of my best friends. Well, let me go back. After high school, there were a lot of choices within Oakland to go study music. I never wanted to go away to a university or anything like that. I just wanted to keep doing music. And at that time, they had Ed Kelly at Laney College, and Jackie Harrison at Merritt College, and Bill Bell at College of Alameda. And I decided I wanted to go to College of Alameda and study with Bill Bell. And then I met a girlfriend of mine. It was so funny. She came home, we were at school one day, and she was like, well, I'm going to have to leave school. And I was like, why? She says, well, my aunt I'm staying with, they're getting evicted. And I'm like, they're getting evicted? She said, yeah. And I was like, but you can't leave. And I was like, come home with me. I'll ask my mom if you could stay with us.
Ah.
And I brought her home with me. We were 18. I was like, Mom, she started school. She can't leave. Can she stay with us? And she was like, all right. So
A little extra pressure, bring her along, so she'd have to say no in front of her face. Right?
So she ended up, we ended up being, we're still very good friends today, but she was an old soul. She really loved blues. She was from Riverside, California. And so I remember she had an orange Pinto, and we would go to West Oakland. I had never really gone to West Oakland. I lived in East Oakland. And I just remember going over railroad tracks and going to places where there were like a lot of older people there. And we were probably like 18, 19, and hearing blues, drinking out of Dixie cups. I won't tell you what I was drinking. But so we did a lot of that. We went places where you had to have a secret knock. Guys say, hey, you want to go to blah, blah, blah? We're like, sure, And they take us to after hours spots. And so, yeah, that was my exposure to Oakland blues. And then I became a part of a performing arts troupe when I was in high school also. And I met a lot of singers. At the time, they seemed like they were a lot older than me, but they really weren't. Like Maxine, she was in Vogue. And
were you friends with her?
Yeah, they kind of like took me under their wings. They were performing with at the Merritt College, the Traveling Voices, they called themselves, and they actually toured and stuff. And so I became friends with them, and that's when I learned, about the club scene, like really, some of them were performing in the clubs. And at that time, you could hit 5, 6, 7 spots a night and hear live music in Oakland.
Do you remember the names of some of those clubs?
Oh, I remember Ivy's, which was, that was my favorite place. And then Jeffrey's actually still exists, one of the few places that exists, Jeffrey's Inner Circle. The Serenada, which was down there near Lake Merritt. The Fifth Amendment. The Fifth Amendment, you could go on a Friday at about 5 p.m. any Friday, and it would be jumping like it was Saturday night.
Wow.
And they had maybe 3 bands in one night. And so that was huge for me, just being able to hang out with people who were legally able to get in the clubs, because I really wasn't supposed to.
Confession on film.
But I didn't do
statute
anything
of limitations
bad.
is passed, so you're okay.
I didn't drink or anything like that.
So is there anything in the Oakland area now that approaches any of that kind of activity, that exciting
It's changed so
blues
much.
scene?
No, not
Okay.
really. Jeffrey's has tried to still keep the music going. You can go there on a Sunday night and hear great jazz with Yancey Taylor and get the best not fried chicken, but fried fish, greens, macaroni and cheese for $10. And it reminds me of a lot of the places, like after, after the people finish, then they'd often serve food afterwards, and you can have breakfast before you went home.
Cool.
So yeah, he's the only one. He's the only one left.
Well, it's cool. He's keeping it alive.
Yes, it is.
So we're here in Chicago, which is one of the most famous homes of the blues. Have you been here before? Have you had a chance to check out the scene here at all?
No, this is my first time.
First time in Chicago?
Very first time.
Wow.
Besides the airport, I've been through Chicago airport and got stuck in Chicago airport many a time.
In the winter?
Yeah.
Yeah. That'll happen here. So you mentioned different jazz, and I understand you had world music background a little bit too. Is that correct? What did you do in world music?
I sang with an all-women's group called The Cuckoo. And
The Cuckoo?
The Cuckoo.
Yeah, D apostrophe was that?
D-U,
Oh, okay.
capital C-U-K-O-O.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd seen that before.
Yeah, and it was in the 90s, right around the time where Silicon Valley was kind of exploding. Technology was new. MIDI technology was new. And there were some extraordinary women that I connected with. A girlfriend said, hey, I got a studio session singing background for these ladies in San Francisco. You want to come? And I'm like, sure. So I went, and they liked me and said, would you like to come and, work with us? And they had actually invented these instruments. Now, mind you, these are white girls that traveled to Africa and Cuba and Japan, all in exploring music, and they love music. And they were very proficient in playing many of the traditional instruments. However, they were like, that's not my culture, so I'm going to create my own thing. So they were really good at playing the marimba. And so they invented these marimbas that had what I would say are the equivalent of mouse pads, but they had triggers underneath them.
Okay.
So it was, when I think back now, they look kind of rudimentary, but they would press these buttons, a code, and then they would change the sounds. And they played with mallets just like they were traditional marimbas. And then they had drums that they created, were turtle drums. And I was the choreographer and lead vocalist for the group. So right before I started with the group, they had opened for the Grateful Dead. And so we had a huge Deadhead following that would follow us around.
And that helps.
And we got to do, a nice amount of traveling and everything. And
around the whole country, or not Chicago apparently?
Not Chicago, not Chicago. But I had my daughter when I was 21, so mind you, she was in tow the whole time at every rehearsal. She learned how to sleep up under a drum set, early on. So it was nice at that time of my life. I guess she was maybe about 7, and being with the all-women's group, they were very very understanding in that, I have to be at work on Monday because I was adamant about keeping health insurance for my daughter and all those things. So it enabled me to do music and to take care of my daughter at the same time. And it was nurturing, for her. And they're all good friends with me to this day.
Was that the first band you were in?
I've been with bands, but bands that never really, we did club gigs every now and then. That was the first touring band that I worked with.
And, so, your band currently, I just saw them recently, it's really great. Your keyboard player is especially impressive to me.
I know, you mentioned that in the email.
Yeah.
So I had one keyboard player, and he decided he didn't want to do it anymore. So Sandra Manning is one of two keyboard players that I've worked with, because they're both very busy.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is Willis Hickerson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm with, they both, which I was hoping would be able to play the Hammond B3 and impress you and everything, but looks like you're impressed anyway.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people just play some very basic things. In a blues band, a lot of the time, a keyboard player. I mean, there's some that are amazing, but some are really very basic, it seems like. And you could tell she had a lot more knowledge and a lot more background in different types of things. She was really taken to a different place. It's really more unique especially in what was, I would say, but you should tell me what you would categorize your music, although a lot of people hate categories, and it's got a negative side of being pigeonholed. But then again, what would you call your music, your show currently?
I call it soul blues.
Yeah, that's perfect, I think, yeah. So, and I know how long have you been writing music, writing your own songs?
Well, probably 3-4 years now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've always written music, but I never really did anything with it. But back in 2014, I decided I wanted to do the IBC, the International Blues Challenge, and I understood that it was important to have original material. And I didn't know anyone who I could say, you got any original material? So I wrote my own material.
All right.
And recorded an EP and just went out there and started doing it. And then after I wrote the songs on, which that EP was called Evolution of the Blues. I just kept writing, and 2016, I had enough material and recorded another CD after that.
I take it then that songwriting's become very important for you.
I like songwriting. I think my songwriting may be a little different because I might be grocery shopping or driving or something like that, and some lyrics or melody will pop in my head, and I thank God for cell phones, right? I pull my smartphone out and I'll just sing it. And I may maybe accumulate, maybe half a dozen songs, and before I go back and revisit them and thinking, oh, well, let me expand on that one, and then I finish them off that way. So right now, if I lose my cell phone, I'm in trouble because I got a lot of stuff in there that I think I would like to record later.
So many people, it's great having that now, because I think so many people might wake up in the middle of the night with a melody and lose it before they can put it down.
There have been some nights I've got up and gone to the bathroom.
Inspiration comes in the middle of the night sometimes.
It does.
So is there a particular artist that you really consider your heroes, or that really influenced you more than others?
Well, I love Etta James, naturally.
Did you ever get to see Etta?
I got to see Etta probably, what year? It was about 2004. I saw Etta. By then she was not the robust,
Probably had her stomach stapled
woman.
by that time, maybe.
Yeah, she looked rather frail, and she was sitting on a stool. But she was pretty feisty still, So yeah, I got to see her once.
Did you ever listen to Big Mama Thornton or Sister Rosetta Tharpe?
That's the other person I was going to mention, Big Mama Thornton.
Okay.
And oddly enough, my family didn't. The blues artists they listened to were all men. B.B. King, the Kings, and they loved Bobby Blue Bland and all of that. But I was looking for, some female influences, and that's definitely where I was led to Big Mama Thornton. And then later on, just living in the Bay Area, I found out she settled in the Bay Area later. And so, I like talking to people. Sometimes I share with people, I love Big Mama Thornton. Well, I knew Big Mama Thornton back in 1972. She cussed me out, so a lot of stories going on about Big Mama Thornton in the
Yeah.
Bay Area, which I love hearing.
There's Chris Strachwitz. Do you know about him at all from Our Hooli Records? He
Mhm.
recorded her and promoted her and everything.
Yes,
So
yes.
if we're ever in the same place at the same time, I'll introduce you to Chris. But I'm on the board of his foundation
Oh,
too,
are
as a matter
you?
of fact.
Okay.
He's a real hero of mine. Without him, we wouldn't have so much Cajun, Zydeco, Tex-Mex, and Southern Blues. He went through the South and recorded and documented so many things that wouldn't have been documented otherwise.
Wow.
He's really quite a guy. But he had some time with Big Mama, yeah.
I would love to hear those stories.
Yeah. And he's a good storyteller,
And
too.
I love watching her on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, thank God for YouTube.
Yeah, that's something people just didn't have before.
No, they didn't.
If they were lucky, maybe they could have seen one show that showed one time on TV that showed clips like that. But if you missed it, you missed it. Now we can just chase down the artist we like. You know? Yeah. So, is there a particular song or songs by anybody that really are your favorite or knocked you out?
Oh, I love Ball and Chain by
Okay.
Big Mama Thornton.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite ones, and I love performing that song. I always feel like I'm kind of okay. Have you ever seen the movie Dreamgirls before?
I
No.
don't think I caught Jennifer Hudson, was it?
Well, Jennifer Hudson was in it, but I remember the play. But there's a character, Jimmy, where they have him dressed in a tux and and he's supposed to be doing the lounge act, but he's I just can't do it no more. Jimmy got soul. So I feel like that. It's like
right.
I can never be subdued and just kind of quiet on stage, and that's why I feel like Big Mama Thornton. I loved how she just kind of
Yeah.
let it out, and I'm attracted to like Etta James. They were women. They were powerful. They left it all on stage. When they got off stage, it was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never saw Big Mama, but I saw Etta a number of times, and you didn't want to mess with her. Do you know about Ruth Brown at all?
Yes.
I represented her for a while.
Oh,
she was
you
another
did?
one who you couldn't put anything past her that wasn't real. You know, I mean, she was
She
beyond
has some
anybody's
naughty
taste.
songs too.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I know.
You ain't gonna buy it, I'm gonna sit on it. You know, whatever. Sit right on it. Yeah. So, what of your own songs, is there one that stands out as the most meaningful to you? Something you've written?
I'm definitely very, very political. I think you know that about me.
Yeah, that's my next question. But go ahead.
I kind of wear my heart on my sleeve as far as the things I feel passionate about, and I'm very passionate about people, our government, the way we're treated by our government, the way we treat each other, and I have not been happy with the way things have been going on in Oakland lately. Things have changed quite a bit.
Oakland locally or just
Locally.
as a result of national
Oakland,
policies?
because of, I would say, a migration that's happened
Oh,
in
yeah,
Oakland.
okay. Gentrification?
Gentrification. And I wrote a song called Gentrification Blues. And I mean, I believe that, you have the right to live wherever you want to live, and especially if you have the money to pay for it. And that is a right. However, to ignore all of the people that have been displaced and made homeless because of it, it's criminal to me. It's criminal. And to add insult to injury, Oakland, when I moved to Oakland, it was probably 84% black, and so a lot of churches in Oakland, and due to, a lot of the gentrification and things like that, a lot of the churches have not been able to survive. But then there are some neighborhood churches that have been around 60, 70 years. And people are moving into these neighborhoods and calling the police on the churches. And And while I was recording the CD, I think this was the second to the last day of recording, and I recorded with Kid Anderson, and I went on Facebook and I saw an article about a church being fined whenever the police was called on them. And this church had been there for a long time. And I was just, and before that, there was a story about some drummers who drummed around the lake. They would play the drums around Lake Merritt, and that's just what they've done for years. And people started calling the police on them. So to add insult to injury, you have all these people being displaced, but then you have people who just can't even respect the culture that already exists there. It's just, to me, mind-boggling how you could be so insensitive.
Exactly.
And why would you move there if you did not want to be a part of that culture there? And so I just put pen to paper right there and drove to the studio and said, okay, this is what we're going to do. And that song, that's how that song came about. And it's very interesting because when I was in Italy with Anthony and with the Anthony Paul Soul Orchestra this summer, I sang it at the Peretta Soul Festival. And afterwards, there's this gentleman from England who says, I know what you're talking about. You know, I was like, huh? You know, we're going through the same thing. And a woman from Australia, she was like, I love that song, Gentrification Blues. That's what we're going through. So this is a big issue, you know, and especially when you drive down the streets and you see people in tents.
Under the freeway there.
Under the freeway. And then they come out and go to work. And then they go back to their tents. That's a problem.
There's a lot of working homeless, but unfortunately a lot of non-working homeless too, that there's not an opportunity for them.
Well, I've always known about the non-working homeless, but the working homeless, that's kind of new. Those numbers are getting bigger.
Well, we had in San Francisco a boom, especially with the .com boom when that happened.
Yes.
And all the prices of everything went up. And then, then now because of that, so many people have moved to the East Bay for a cheaper cost of living, especially housing is the worst. So now you're dealing with it. I think what we had said before, and it's, I don't know if it's out of place in here, but in San Francisco they had that too, but not, you had the culture of the African American churches and gospel singing and everything over there, which is amazing. But in San Francisco, it's not nearly as much of that. But they had clubs, a similar situation where people would move into a neighborhood with a nightclub, and then they'd complain about it. And it's an obvious absurdity, like you're saying, unfair, when it existed. And then you move into something that exists, and then you want to change it for your own comfort when you're the newbie. And they changed that. They made a law change in San Francisco, I think, where you can't move into the neighborhood and complain about what's there as far as the noise thing.
Wow.
You know beforehand what you're getting into, and if you get into it, you don't try to change the local culture or the local entertainment scene.
Well, that's what needs to happen in
Exactly.
Oakland. And unfortunately, it's too late for a lot of clubs in Oakland, because Oakland had a pretty vibrant musical club scene. But if you talk, and in this movie, Evolution of the Blues, Jeffrey talks about it, but before it was just murmured about amongst, people who patronize these clubs, but those clubs were closed systematically by the city. Some say false accusations, all kinds of things, but Oakland has changed a lot, and it's not by accident, so.
It's a shame because it's got such an incredible musical heritage. Jazz, blues, R&B especially, and soul, everything, So
we have to continue to talk about it and let people know.
Absolutely.
And I'm really quick to know. I went to a little music, what do they call it? A lot of people who are in the music, whether they're recording or engineering or performers, they meet on Fridays at a coffee shop. And I went one day and they were like, yeah, Oakland's becoming real cool. And I was like, let me tell you something. Oakland has always been cool,
Right.
and you've missed it. You missed it. You think something is bubbling up now. You have no idea.
But it has Starbucks now, isn't that great?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
By
Sorry,
the
I'm
way,
very
which is
sarcastic.
another musical venue, and well, I won't go into that, but you know, you've heard of Everett and Jones.
Yeah,
Yeah,
barbecue.
they've been
Famous barbecue.
feeding homeless people.
Uh,
And from what I understand, Everett and Jones, I mean, not Everett and Jones, but Starbucks has filed a complaint with the city, and yeah, so
That's
anyway,
insanity.
yeah.
Well, I picked up something else out of wherever I read about you. I've checked a few little things. The Rassanathon, that you participated in that. Is that right? Was there a particular connection to Rassan? This is about Rassan Roland Kirk.
Yes.
I actually booked some shows with actually.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Wow.
But what was the connection there, or how did that
Well,
come
first of all, I had a stint singing jazz. You know, like I said, I had a voice teacher who I had a pretty nice repertoire of jazz standards by the time I was a teenager, and I was singing in San Francisco one time, and down the street was Yoshi's, and Steve Terri walks in, and he go, "Hey, I'm Steve Terri," and I'm like, "Okay." And so, you know, we became friends. I didn't really know who he was, and come to find out, he was a pretty, you know, famous jazz artist, and he, you know, still plays with Saturday Night Live and things like that. So we became friends, and he played with Rassan Roland Kirk. As a teenager, he started playing with Rassan, and I did not know about Rassan. And Steve Terri told me, "Now look him up, play that video, play this," you know. And I started researching him. I'm like, wow. So then at Cafe Stretch, the history of Cafe Stretch is the owner, when he opened Cafe Stretch, before it was, I think, called the Eulipians, he did it in mind of having Rassan Roland Kirk perform there. And Rassan passed before he could actually do that. So that dream has always lived on. So, you know, fast forward to 2000 and 13, 14, he decided he would do, he wanted to do a birthday celebration for Rassan Roland Kirk and connect with Steve Terri, who's been the one to kind of keep Rassan's music alive. And Steve is good friends with Dorthon Kirk, who is Rassan's wife. And it's just become, this year was the 5th year, and it's just become a big deal. Every year, people come from the East Coast, and you know, who knew Rassan, or people who have studied Rassan, and we play Rassan's music for 3 days, and I'm
where does this
very
take place?
fortunate at Cafe Stretch in San Jose.
Okay.
Yeah, so
And have you been there several years?
I've done it every year.
Every year.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I noticed another thing you'd mentioned, and if you can just talk about it a little. Actually, I may get edited out a lot of this, so I want you to be full in your answers. But you mentioned about a responsibility in performing to make people feel good, I think, which is wonderful. And I think we mentioned it before, but the audience really feels what's coming off stage. You know, and an artist can make a mistake on guitar, but if they keep going like nothing's happened, the audience thinks maybe they heard wrong, you know.
Yeah.
But if they make a big deal of it, then everybody knows, oh, he made a mistake or something. But also on the vibe coming off stage. And you have last night you performed here at the Logan Center for the first Logan Center Blues Festival,
Yeah.
and knocked everybody out. It was really a fantastic energy
Oh,
and
thank
positive
you.
energy and a good sense of humor also in what you were doing.
Thank you.
You want to talk about that for a second, about your responsibility as a performer?
Well, now I would like to expand that. Not only are you responsible for making the audience feel good, you're responsible for making them feel. I do believe that music, we have the responsibility as musicians to speak on things that are going on in the world. Somehow you can create something with a message, and someone else will hear that and remember it and sing it and sing it and sing it, and before you know it, your message is being spread.
Mm-hmm.
And during a performance, I think it's important, whatever, depending on the song you're doing, it's important to make people feel. I mean, that's my goal.
Yeah.
And I think that even supersedes sounding perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's to really, and actually that's a lot of what my workshop was about today, was really making people engage and feel what you're trying to say to them.
Yeah.
So, and funny thing, like my voice teacher, the one thing I took back, I carried with me from having voice lessons was that enunciation is very important. So people have to be able not only to feel it, but understand what you're saying as well. So, I mean, I feel I carry that responsibility proudly,
That's great that you are clear about that. I mean, I'm actually pretty horrible about picking up lyrics a lot of the time, but there's certain artists that really enunciate clearly and you can't miss it.
Well, I think it's important.
Absolutely. And there's a song, Born to Die. You want to talk about that, about the love of the people is enough to kill your hate?
Yeah, and I wrote that song during the election.
Ah.
I was referencing.
We have to start loving harder, I guess.
Well, I know, in hindsight, maybe, those lyrics were definitely written as a result of experiencing that election. I remember it was intended to be a gospel at first. The first verse I was thinking was a gospel, but then as I started just singing it and writing it, it became this angry song,
Again, that's important to get it out there. And for people watching this 40 years from now, the election she's talking about is the election of Donald Trump. Which we're not all thrilled about. By the time you watch this, maybe he won't be. I wanted to ask you also, I saw something about you have a day job. Can you tell us about that?
Well,
what you do? And does it relate to your music?
It does not relate to my music.
Okay.
And I it's kind of by design. I remember when I was in junior high school, we had an assessment to try to figure out, what are you going to do when you grow up? What are you supposed to be when you grow up? And I did my assessment, and I remember that I scored really high in the arts, and I scored really high on social, which those positions, the jobs come over, social worker, teacher, humanitarian type jobs, and I was like, okay. And I remember as a kid, I always, there was a disabled population on campus, and I always played with those kids because I felt sorry for them. They were always by themselves. And so as I got older, that's what I gravitated to, and to special ed. And so that's where I work, in special ed. I work for a program called Workability. And
how old are your students?
The students are from junior high to 22 years old.
Wow.
And I work with them in career development and helping them to find jobs and job readiness skills and things like that.
Is this all physically disabled or other disabilities as well?
There's the way you define being disabled in California or with the school district is if they have an IEP, an individual educational plan. So therefore, a kid who just has a minor learning disability, maybe is dyslexic and may not be able to read as easily, or may have a math deficit, or a kid who's in a wheelchair or blind, or may have a cognitive disability. It just runs the gamut. So I work with kids of all kinds.
And how big a class are you dealing with at a time?
I do with 2 different schools. So
Okay.
some kids, most kids I work with one-on-one
Mm-hmm.
and helping them. And then a lot of kids, sometimes I do workshops, and it could be anywhere from, 5 to 25 kids in a workshop. And then I do events, job fairs, career speakers. Maybe you come in and be a career speaker one day.
Sure.
And so, because a lot of the kids will grow up to do great things in life, and they need people to tell them, you can do it, or don't be limited by what someone tells you you can't do. How about think about all the things you can do? So that's what I've been doing for a long time now.
There is a thread there, I think, and that's caring about people and what you do with your career, your day job career, and then what you try to communicate in your music, I would think.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like I have 2 different lives. Like sometimes I'll be gone. Like I go to work Monday morning. I've been in Chicago since Thursday. So it's like I've learned really quickly to kind of shift gears back. But I remember early on, it was just kind of, I felt like I was dropped out of a plane sometime into the schoolyard. Like, okay, what's your name again?
Seems like things are going well now, it seems like.
Yeah.
Is there anything, do you have goals like I would hope to reach this goal or accomplish this in the next 10 years? Do you have?
Well, it's
funny.
Like I have I remember my benchmarks. I always try to have these benchmarks for myself. And my benchmark last year or a year before last, was to perform in Europe. And
You've done this, right?
Yeah. And then perform at Yoshi's. And Yoshi's is in Oakland. It's about 300 people. And I sold Yoshi's out 3 times. And now I've done Europe. And I have this journal, this beautiful journal. Actually, it's in my bag right now. And it has all these amazing positive things on it. And I'm carrying it around trying to decide what are my next goals going to be. Because to be honest, I wrote myself off as a artist, maybe as a young woman, thinking, you have to be a certain size, you have to be a certain age, you have to have all these certain qualities in order to be successful at music. And so I'm just like, right now, my eyeballs are like saucers right now. I'm like in disbelief that I've been so blessed to be able to do this after I thought the milk expired. It's still good. I'm still able to perform. And so, yeah, I am at this moment living the dream, but I know to continue, I do the way I operate, I like to have something to work towards.
We had the Yoshis and the Europe, and you've accomplished both of those. Is there another concrete other concrete goals along those
I
lines?
think I would like to do another CD. I am constantly, writing for that. Money is the obstacle for that, so I'm saving up for that. And then I would like to, after I do the CD, I would like to see where that could take me.
Mm-hmm.
I never had the dream of being famous. I never had the dream of being rich. I just really wanted to be able to travel. I love the people who I meet through music. So many of my dear friends are people who I met through music. I wanted to make enough money so that if there was someone who I knew in need of help, I could help them. To be able to buy presents for people, to be able to bless people, in ways that I know what it's like to be poor and to, being a single parent and everything. So, I try to help young people out, whether it's family or not necessarily young people, just because I have a girlfriend. She loves blues. I took her to the Blues Bender last year because that's what she wanted, and I had sold a lot of CDs, so that was very fulfilling for me to be able to do that. So I just hope to be able to do more of that, travel more, meet more people, and play music with amazing musicians.
Oh, that's beautiful, because you read from one male musician in particular after another about how they got into the business or why, and it's to meet the women, because the guitar players always get the women, and then it converts as they go beyond their late adolescence or something. It's money and fame and everything else. It's great that you're thinking of others as what you want to do with.
Well, I think God has a plan. Whenever you do something, He's preparing you for something else. So I feel like it's not a mistake that I had the experiences that I've had. It's not a mistake that I live in Oakland and have seen what I've seen. It's not a mistake that I'm being blessed at this age in my life, because I internalize it and I receive it in a different way than maybe I would have in my 30s, or in my 20s. It means something different to me.
All of this, and you say you didn't come up in the church. Have you become more religious later in life?
I think I did start going to church in my 30s. Actually, it was funny. About 2 weeks ago, there's a church that always hire me to sing on Sundays, and I've had some not so good experiences with churches, and I thought I was kind of done. But this church, the people are so beautiful and so consistent. And I have been singing at this church for maybe, 3 years now. I thought, I think I'm going to join. So I told the pastor, I'm going to join. She was all excited, yes. And so then, okay, we're receiving new members this day. Okay, put me down. And then I get a text like, okay, remember, we're supposed to be a blah, blah, blah. This, I had a gig.
Oh, what denomination is this, can I ask?
It is, the church is called Plymouth Church of Jazz and Justice.
Jazz and Justice?
Jazz and Justice.
No wonder you went for that
In
church.
Oakland, that's right. That's right. So it is all encompassing of everything.
Yeah, it's great.
And I remember before, you feel guilty about going on gigs, or you miss Bible study because you had a jam session you wanted to go to or something. But this church, they're like, oh, yes. Matter of fact, they all show up for my shows.
Yeah. It's like, you are doing the religion for us when you're going doing the gig. Yeah.
So
That's
actually,
good.
I just joined church again,
great.
joined the church again, yeah.
My wife and I got married. We had a minister from the Temple of the Golden Rule, and I thought that was
wow.
Kind of took care of everything
How
there.
Cool. Yeah.
So I'm going to do some kind of more general sort of big picture questions here.
Okay.
As a a few of these last ones were too. But so, just as we're kind of wrapping this interview here and your oral history, you mentioned Etta James is a big hero. I guess Mahalia would be a big hero too, right?
Yes.
You know things about these people from growing up and whatever you've absorbed. Thinking about them, is there anything in their history you wish had been documented or that you wish you knew?
Oh, wow.
And then applied to yourself, of course, is the trick here.
That's a good question. I'm always intrigued with Etta James. And so much of her life has been documented, but I would like to know, I guess if I had to ask Etta a question, like she had like a certain amount of success when she was younger. And then she had a time where she wasn't so successful. I would like to know maybe how did she receive the later success differently than she received the earlier success. I do believe that I believe that age is a good thing. I used to be like, I don't want to get older, you know, but I kind of relish in the wisdom from the experiences that you obtain over the years, which is kind of influences, you know, why I sing the music that I sing. So it'd be interesting. And one thing I love about Etta is like her freedom on stage, even though it wasn't necessarily always the appropriate thing, what everybody else wanted to see or thought they should see. I loved her freedom that she had on her stage. I would like to also know about, you know, how did you become just that confident to just do you all the time?
Have you read her biography?
I have not.
It's pretty interesting. It's a heavy life with all sorts of difficult twists and turns. You know, really, really difficult life. You know, especially younger. So yeah, it's definitely her being a hero of yours.
I have to hit up Amazon.
It'll knock you out.
If I go on Amazon now, it'll be there by the time I get home tomorrow.
There you go. What a world we live in, huh? So, one of my questions here, you already answered about, did you ever feel like giving up? And you've kind of answered that. But were there any other situations in your life you felt were the most challenging things, and maybe how you addressed those?
Well, for one thing, I have been really blessed with a good family. I've always had a good family. And I won't say that I've always felt like wonderful things were going to happen to me musically. It's just that I just kept doing what I love. I can't help it. It's just what I'm supposed to be doing. It's like, that's just like say, okay, stop breathing right now. You know, you can't do it. You know,
can I breathe?
Yeah.
Terri, you're so mean.
Yeah. That's how I feel when it comes to music, and that's how things have evolved with music. I don't have a hard story. I never did drugs. I mean, the hardest thing that's happened to me, but it's been the biggest blessing to me, has been the birth of my daughter. Maybe I put the carriage before the horse in having her, you know, because I wasn't, you know, prepared, you know, to raise a child.
And you were what, 20?
But I
when
did
you
it. I was
had your
21. You know, but I did it, you know, with the help of and love of my family and everything.
She's a grown woman now?
She's 33.
Yeah.
And she's
That's
married.
Calculating.
Yeah, she's 33 years old. So I have one more person in my life who encourages me, you know. Yeah, I don't have a hard story.
Well,
I mean, my life has been good. I've always had a roof over my head. I've always had people who love me. I hope I've given as much love as I've received, and so, yeah. I
That's
don't know how
great.
interesting that is.
That's beautiful.
My voice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The struggle. That's right. Thank you. The struggle has been. I actually was told to be silent for a minute because I had done damage to my voice from teaching and singing. And I woke up one morning and I could barely speak after, I was like singing 3 nights a week and teaching 5 nights a week. And the doctor put the scope down my throat and said, "Oh, you have nodules, and we could either do surgery, which means your voice, you could lose it altogether, or you could be silent for a month. Those are your choices." So I had a lot of gigs lined up, and I just thought, well, you don't have any choice. You have to be silent for a month. It was right before Christmas. I canceled all my shows. I had to sit down with my family because we gathered for Christmas, and I told them, this is what I'm going to have to do. And, my brother was like, you're not going to be able to do that, Nobody believed I would do it, but I called all my friends, and I told them, this is the situation. I called my job and told them that I wasn't going to be able to speak from January 1st to February 1st. And I didn't. I bought myself an easel, a dry erase board. And it was before the text messaging was really big. So I got my coffee every morning, and I was like, medium coffee in a large cup.
All right.
And it was actually kind of interesting. What started out as being something that I thought was going to be very difficult and hard and depressing was actually really enlightening. I became like a fly on the wall because I couldn't run my mouth. So people eventually forget you're there.
Interesting.
And they're just chatting away, and I'm like,
You said, what about me?
no, I would just listen.
Yeah, right.
I knew I wasn't going to be able to engage. I mean, the dry erase only worked like very seldom because, the pace of a conversation is not that slow. So, I ended up just kind of hanging out. You want to go to dinner? Oh, we're all meeting for dinner.
All right.
So, yeah, hanging out
Oh, that's great.
without talking. It was a cool experience.
That's great. Is there anybody you would like to collaborate with? Any dream collaboration? That's alive. That's still a
I
possibility.
would like to collaborate with Fantastic Negrito. Actually,
Have you
he
mentioned it to
tweeted
him?
me. He tweeted me, say, Terri Odabi, I think we need to do a collaboration or something. But that was before he won the Grammy. So
No, it doesn't. He's still the same guy. Maybe a little bigger ego. No,
He's a little
he's still
bigger.
the same guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like, only because I feel like we're both Oakland.
Yeah.
We're not far from the same age. We just kind of have a different vibe, but kind of the same vibe,
Yeah, he's got a whole different vibe coming off stage. Really very much more aggressive and edgy. Yeah.
I like it, though.
I do too.
I like it. It
First
moves
time I
me.
saw him, I had to go backstage and say hello. I just saw you the first time. Very impressive.
He's a moving individual.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's inspiring to me.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, I certainly like surrounding myself with people who inspire me. Whether it's
Absolutely.
musicians, they don't have to do the same thing that I do. But if they move me, I just want to be around them because they inspire me to be better.
Absolutely. Yeah. It increases, what you've got going. You add other people's influence to you, and especially if it's a positive one or an inspiring one. Yeah. So just a couple more things, unless we suddenly expand further. But you just finished doing a vocal coaching class. Have you done that before?
Nope.
How did you feel about that process?
I was very nervous about it in the beginning. I just felt like they don't want to hear from me. You know, I don't have anything to offer, but I was encouraged by Christine, you know, to do it, and I'm glad I did it. I think it was well received. I think sometimes people need to know that you can, you know, give them permission that you could do something. I think that was my experience in the workshop. Some people are like, I want to sing, I want to be able to sing, but I can't sing. I'm like, no, you should not think that, you know. And one woman said, I can't sing anymore. I had problems with my vocal cords. I'm like, I did too. My voice is different than what it sounded like before, but I'm still singing, you know.
Yeah, I noticed in your notes for that, I was kind of surprised, but really interesting about, I was thinking more of vocal technique, but you got into some real basics of not eating before the gig, and you've said also not talking too much before the gig, and some of these things, and there's a few other things in there that seemed I wasn't even thinking of that you would be talking about, but they make total sense as far as being prepared to be on stage and sing.
Well, I feel like in order to be on stage, you have to be at your best. Now, for one person, that might be one thing. For another person, might be another thing. But definitely, the overall health of your voice makes a difference. So it has to be at its best. So what I wanted to share with the people is what makes me feel secure is knowing that my voice is at its best. And that way I don't have any obstacles when I'm trying to perform. I'm not preoccupied, or I wish I could do that, or wish I could do that, or I'm, you know, blocked. So yeah, there are certain things. Also from my experience of losing my voice, I don't ever want anyone to have to go through that, you know, and I'm sharing things that I wish that I knew, you know, where some of the things I shared are because of my vocal training, like the placement and all those things, those exercises. But then I didn't know about mucus. Mucus, you know, for the vocal cord. If you have a cold, you know, or something like that, it's so important to address that. You know, drink a lot of water. Hydration is important. You know, so I just wanted to share that stuff with them before they even start thinking about now that you know this, you know, let's talk about, you know, if you're really interested, you know, let's, you know, take some voice lessons, learn about, you know, see where your pitch is, you know, see, and then let's talk about like being authentic and being yourself and being able to freely express yourself. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. I think a lot of people are so self-taught, you know, in everything they do in music. Guys maybe more so, but maybe not necessarily to get into the band to get the women or something like that. And they just start like that, and they just drive forward, and they realize they need to write songs, and they've got to make sense. But I don't think, I know from experience a lot of people that just haven't had those thoughts about, or never had voice training, and haven't had the thoughts about the preparation. And what you're saying there makes so much sense. And you take care of all those things, and then you've got the confidence that you know you've done what you can.
Or a lot of people want to sound like someone else. Your voice is unique to who you are. And that's something I struggle with too, because I don't sound like anybody. I don't know if you've noticed, but I don't sound like any blues singer I've ever heard before in my life, you know. Before Sister Monica passed, we connected very late, you know, right before I know we were going to be good friends because she introduced my new friend at her
All
very
right.
last performance.
Oh,
But one of her
wow.
introductions that really confirmed my thoughts, she says, she has a very unique timbre to her voice.
Oh.
It's unlike anyone you've ever heard. And I'm like, yep, that's what I thought. So
Yeah, for the record, that
for
was
the
Sister
record,
Monica Parker.
Sister Monica Parker,
Yeah.
which, by the way, I think the anniversary of her passing was just maybe a few days ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Mm.
But yeah, just finding that authentic voice of your own instead of trying to sound like someone else.
Mhm.
If you learn how the voice is supposed to come out in a healthy way, not in your throat, not in your nasals, but in a healthy way, then that's who you sound like.
Mhm.
That's that's your authentic self.
All right. Well, we're grand finale here.
Okay.
So, this is your oral history.
Mm-hmm.
It can be used for promotional purposes by you, whatever. It could become part of a documentary sometime, who knows. Is there anything else that you would like to make part of this history of your life and career that hasn't been brought up yet?
Do I have a second to think about that?
Absolutely.
Let's see. Anything else? I don't know. Music, I just think is joy. Music is joy. Whether you are someone who just appreciates music or performing music, I'm just appreciative to be a part of the music community and being able to sing and use my voice and create feelings and emotions and to be present at a time like this where there's so much to be said.
Yeah.
I hope to contribute more to the dialogue that needs to be had through music. So.
And it is a real community. I mean, not all of it, but a lot of the people in it are a community, and I think maybe can be closer a lot of the time because people are opening up to the public. They're bearing their souls a little bit a lot of the time.
I hope there's more of
as
it.
opposed to just, something more mechanical type of job. You're out there sharing your feelings with everybody in public, and other people are sharing, their voice via an instrument or another vocal or whatever too. So.
It's exciting to do music during this time, even though the earning potential is not as great as perhaps what it used to be, but you have more control over who you become and who you display yourself as. And I can say that, I remember when social media came out and everything, I was like, well, maybe I don't want to say that because there may be someone who may be thinking about booking me who may not like that. But now I'm at a time in my life, if you don't like what I have to say, then I don't really want to have anything to do with you anyway.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel at this age and this time in my life. I'm so selective about who I have around me, who I make music with, and who I want to be around. And so I feel like I'm a good person. What I have to say is from the heart. It's not hurtful. It's not evil. And if you find that offensive, then
we don't need to hang, huh?
I don't need to know you.
Yeah.
I don't need to know you exist. I don't need to discuss anything with you. If you're offended by that, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I think a lot of time an artist who wants the largest audience possible, in a lot of cases,
compromise.
but there can be a concern about alienating part of your audience because of the stand you take. But I also think, we have people that run for public office and they take their stand, and they'll get their followers. And maybe the stronger stand you take, you may alienate some, but you may win over others because they appreciate your position so much. You know, so,
I really think it's important in this time to be authentic.
yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, anything else you want to say?
That's it.
All right, so it's been great. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you. I feel honored. Yeah. It's a first for me, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like that? Well,
So I've
first
had a
of all,
lot of firsts during this Chicago trip.
Yeah, you were the first one on stage for
I was the
the
first
concert.
one on stage.
Yeah.
I was the first, I call myself the poster child.
There you go.
My
That was
first
great.
workshop
Yeah.
and my first interview like this.
All right. All right. Well, I hope I passed your test.
No test there.
Okay.
I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Great. Same here.
Thank you.
All right.